How do I get signed to an agent is the question that I get asked more than any other. And I am going to explain the answer to that question. I will give it to you. And I'm going to talk about my own experience getting signed at WME, which is one of the bigger agencies in the world. I guess it's probably the biggest. And I am going to talk about um, why it is that people want answers to this particular question and the questions that I think they should ask instead of this question. I'm Chad Sanders. I'm at Chadsand on Instagram. You know me as many things. Let's just get into it. All right. I'm not going to talk in a straight line here because there's a fair amount to share about this topic. It comes up so often. It's been coming up for me since I signed at WME, which was at this point 9 years ago, which is crazy to think of. And I suppose I'll start the story by saying I was just like everybody else who was so obsessed, so obsessed with the idea of getting signed to an agency. Okay, so let's go to 2017. That is when I signed with my agency. I believe it was February of 2017. And here was my situation because I think y'all will relate to it. I was someone who had recently quit my job at a tech startup because that tech startup got acquired by Kaplan, a big corporation. I didn't want to work for a big corporation. I had previously worked at Google and quit my job there to go to a tech startup. So I certainly didn't want to work for another big corporation. But more importantly was like, I guess I was just realizing I didn't want to work for anybody, so to speak. And what I really wanted to do was I think I wanted to be a writer, but let's all like be so honest with each other in this conversation. What I wanted probably more than anything was to feel seen as a creative, as a person. I think I wanted to be a public figure. I think I wanted to be famous. I think I wanted to be an actor and all these things, right? I just kind of wanted, I wasn't being specific about the vision. I just kind of wanted to be picked is the best way to say it, okay? And so the way that I thought I could find an in there was to sell a TV show. This was in the era when Issa Rae had Insecure in its biggest moments. Donald Glover had Atlanta coming out. Lena Dunham had Girls on TV. These were people a few years older than me in my generation who had done a really cool thing in my eyes, which is that they had launched a TV series that they appeared in as the stars, and they had ridden, I guess, that wave to like what looked like, not just stardom as a creative, but opportunities to do whatever they wanted to do. And I was missing some very important elements of that story. Even though I had these elements, I wasn't thinking about them for me. And the elements that I was missing from that story was that all of those people had climbed their way to that point by making product. Okay. Donald Glover had built a career in TV, film, and music over time at that point by releasing projects independently, by putting stuff out directly to his audience, by leveraging the internet to reach his audience until the point where he was able to sell a show to a big network and star in it. Issa Rae had built Awkward Black Girl on YouTube, which was her direct to audience platform where she would tell short stories, little vignette episodes to her audience, and then roll those episodes out like in theaters and stuff like that over time on her way to getting her big shot at Insecure at HBO. Lena Dunham had made a short film, I think called Tiny Furniture, that she wrote and starred in and directed. Okay. And also Lena Dunham had some major advantages in that her parents were wealthy New Yorkers. Okay. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that none of these people had done the thing that I had imagined in my head, that so many others imagine in theirs, which is that you go into an agency, you give them a bunch of, pizzazz and a big show of charisma and brilliance. They sign you, and then you're off to stardom, right? Because the agency then takes it from there. They go and they pitch you to all the networks and they say, put our person in front of the screen and make our person's show. What I'm saying is, I believed what I think so many other people believe, which is that the agents have the power in the industry. Maybe That was true in some ways decades ago at this point, right? But today, the power is in the leverage of the audience, meaning the power belongs to whoever can get the audience to move, to watch something, to buy something. That's what everybody is after. And so those three creators I just mentioned, I'm just going to use them as the examples, but there are so many more in line with that. The creators who have leverage, the people who are able to sell in Hollywood, are the people who have power to move audiences, as those people built by way of making independent projects on their way to the big studio network deal. Okay. Now, but let's focus on the question: how do you get signed to an agent? Well, today, I want you to think about that the way that you would get an agent to sell your house. All right. Which is to say, you wouldn't go and find an agent to help you sell a house until you had a house. Meaning, you wouldn't get a real estate agent to put your house on sale to the market until you had ownership of said house. So, in other words, there are many people who are asking me, how do I get signed to an agent, who haven't yet built something that is sellable for the agency. Okay? Now is not a time where there was a moment, and I came into Hollywood in that moment, and I'll tell you how I got signed, but there was a moment, okay, around that 2018 time, where there was a mandate from streaming companies, because so much money had come into the industry, to go and buy up as much creative as a product as possible, as all these streamers were trying to build their subscription bases. We need more product. We need more creatives. We need more. That time was when agents could go and find new creatives like me, who speculatively, right? Just on the strength of them thinking I was promising, and the fact that I had written a couple screenplays, thought, okay, maybe this person can be a creative in Hollywood. And so they would sign us, they would take us out into, and I'm already going too far. I'm already telling an industry lie by saying they would take us out to meet with the networks. That's not true. They set me up on a few generals, but I'll tell you how I really got my first deal with a TV show. But the point I want to make on this part is, there was a time when there was more demand for creativity than there was actual creative available, right? And so that was a time when agents were signing up talent, because the industry was looking to buy up creative. That time has flipped, okay? Right now, there are more people rushing the door with their creative, trying to get signed to agents, than there is demand for creativity, than there are opportunities at the big studios and networks, right? Because so much of the money has moved away from those networks and into the, let's call it, the influencer economy, the creator economy, right? Where brands can work directly with the creatives without going through the networks or the studios. But there are still those of you who want to sign to agencies and agents. And so today, the way that you're going to do that is by building audience leverage on those social channels as influencers and creators, so that when you reach a critical mass where the studios say, okay, the networks say, okay, that person has so many people following them, we need to buy their audience by doing a deal with them. Now, this is where the agents can come into play, okay? This is where the agents, as the conduits between the networks and the studios, right, over here, and you over here, can connect, and the agents can make a deal for you and take their 10%. But the only way that those agents are going to know that you are a creative with value, it's not going to be by reading your TV pilot. It's not going to be by reading your screenplay. It is going to be by seeing your actual audience take shape on socials, where everyone can see it. That is your proof that there is something to sell. That's your house on the market, okay? Now, if you get to that point, who knows if you'll even see value at that point in selling or licensing yourself to the big networks or studios. You might, if they make you an offer you can't refuse, if they write you a big ass check, that's when your agent comes in, negotiates the deal, works with your lawyer, takes their 10%. That's when there's something to be done. But many of you who are asking me how to get signed to an agency, you are trying to rush the door to be sat in someone's back pocket or back office with no motion. And the danger of that is that what happened to me can happen to you. Let me explain it. I'm going to explain it quickly and we're going to get out of here. The way I got signed to an agency was during that rush when there was so much opportunity for new creatives that I mentioned, right? Because there was so much demand for new creativity. I pitched myself to everybody, people who were in the industry and people who weren't, friends, colleagues, people from networking opportunities, just anybody. I would send them my screenplay. I did table reads for my TV pilot. I wanted anybody to take a look at me, okay? Now, many of you all know in the beginning of my career, I worked with Spike Lee. This is before that, all right? A woman that I met on a trip at a networking event introduced me to a friend of hers, who introduced me to a friend of hers who was a PR agent. That PR agent, her name was Stephanie Jones, okay? She happened to be married to a guy named Jason Hodis, who is an agent at WME, all right? So I went through the pipeline of relationships because I pitched my project and myself to everybody that led me to an agent. Now, why was I a promising prospect to that agency? The reason is, one, because I showed the hustle of being willing to climb and sort of ask for relationships and run all over town selling myself to people. But also because when I showed up with a TV pilot in a folder. That was my house to sell, okay? That was the proof that there was something I actually had to offer that was sellable on the market. Me, as this sort of spunky, hustling person, plus I actually would do the work of making product, all right? That led me eventually, because I chased it, right, more than anybody, that led me to more relationships that led me down the path to making some sales in Hollywood. That'll be a different video. We're talking about specifically how I got signed, all right? I just told you the answer to that. But at that point in time, my TV pilot and myself as the salesperson, that was sufficient to prove to an agent that I was a sellable entity, right? That I was someone they could make money on, and they did. And we have made money together by doing deals in publishing, podcasting, TV writing, screenwriting. I've sold movies, all the things. Today, that proof of concept, that TV pilot does not suffice. That's what I'm telling you. If you want to get signed to an agent today, and that is your prerogative if that's what you want, because I'm not telling you that's the right path. But if you want that, the road you have to take is that you have to show you have a sellable product. That product is not your TV show idea anymore. That product today is your audience. That's different than what it used to be, because now with social media, you have every vehicle available to prove out to someone that you can move an audience. And so if you want an agent to sign you, you need to prove that by building your audience. If you want to know how to do that, my best advice to you today is to start making a vertical series. If you want to know how to make a vertical series, you can click the link in the caption of this video, which will take you to my webinar, which is this Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern time, how to launch your vertical series in 2026. If you want more information, go to my Instagram at Chadsand, where I am talking ad nauseum about the steps to launching a vertical series now, so you can get noticed by audiences, you can build an audience and leverage that audience into the opportunities you want in this industry. That's all I got to say to you today. I'm Chad Sanders at Chadsand on Instagram. Goodbye.